Hello and welcome to ACS's Industry Insights, a series that features some of ICT's most respected leaders, exploring innovation, challenges and opportunities in the constantly evolving tech world and the pace and impact of digital disruption and transformation. My name is Nick Tate, Vice President Membership for the ACS. These interviews have been designed to allow you, ACS members and our viewers, to submit your questions and have them answered by our experts. Please send your questions through Twitter, Facebook or YouTube using the hashtag ACSLive. Our 11th industry leader is Ajay Bhatia, Managing Director, Consumer Business at carsales.com and board member of multiple organisations. Thank you to our audience for joining us this afternoon and welcome Ajay.
Thank you, Nick. Glad to be here.
Ajay, back in 2014, you participated in an ACS CXO challenge and were interviewed for what became the Executive Guide to Managing Digital Disruption. You reflected on your time at Fairfax and your first job there to rebuild drive.com.au before going into your journey with carsales.com. The important element of this interview was your rich experience leading digital transformation and cultural change for a traditional business which was being disrupted before moving to an organisation that would have been considered the disruptor. Can you share your experience with the audience?
Yeah, Nick, this was a good 15 years ago, and when I joined Fairfax, it was one of the most exciting times for me, and for the first 3 years, it lived up to expectations. We had a focus on our customers, we had focus on value, we had focus on moving fast and making things happen. The structure was, we had the three classifieds: Drive for automotive, Domain for real estate, My Career for jobs. All of the three had their separate teams, their separate GMs, separate product managers, separate development managers, etc. And the teams focused on automotive customer differently to real estate customers and differently to employment. For the first 3 years, that structure and that focus on customers made us successful. I remember a time in the first 3 years when drive.com.au actually became number one. Now that was a long time ago. If you told anyone that today, they probably wouldn't believe you, but it actually happened. And it happened because of the focus that we had on customers. But something happened after 3 years. There was a merger between Rural Press and Fairfax, and that brought more newspaper thinking to the business, more traditional thinking to the business. There was possibly a need for finding more efficiencies as the newspaper business was going down. The problem with that, when you are part of a traditional business trying to create a digital part of the business, is this digital business is running at a different pace to this newspaper business, which is in the reverse gear, to use an automotive analogy. So just because the newspaper business is in reverse gear, you can't put the digital business in reverse gear. And it's understanding the organisation not as the one organisation, but two parts of the organisation that was really important. And that's where we possibly lost our way. And it was a key learning for me is when you try to disrupt your own business, the first thing you have to disrupt is your thinking, and the second thing you must follow up with is to give this new venture of yours enough oxygen on its own so it doesn't get impacted by the mothership.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to revisit some of those ideas you've touched on. However, could you fast forward to today? Where is carsales.com and the other related entities from when you first joined them?
I joined now nearly 10 years ago. In fact, November will be 10 years for me. And back when I joined Carsales, it was a publicly listed company, but not on the stock exchange. It was a public company, not listed. So in 2009 we listed. Since then we've gone international. We are in various countries in Latin America. We're in numerous Asian countries too. We do more than buy and sell cars now. We also do car inspections before you can buy a car. We sell tires. We offer used car warranties. We offer finance. So the company's grown tremendously in the last 10 years. I wish I could alone take credit for it, but it's been incredible people who worked for this organisation, and it's been the focus of the team on customers. It's been the focus on value. Digital disruption isn't actually a very hard concept. It's very intuitive. It makes sense. And the customer is at the center of it. And I think at carsales we kept things really, really simple. We kept our focus on customers, and we kept our focus on adaptability and speed.
Okay. Yes, and only a few weeks ago there was a new feature added to carsales.com to give consumers a better view on well-priced or valued vehicles by flagging them. Given you've always kept a keen eye on international markets and products and services for consumers throughout their life cycle, what does the roadmap for the next 1 to 3 years look like for car sales consumers? What could people expect to see?
Yeah, from a car sales perspective and from a digital business perspective, we don't think of long-term roadmaps as feature roadmaps, because the features tend to be in the minutiae. And so what we sort of think about is horizons. We think of Horizon 1 being, let's get really, really good at buying and selling cars and remove friction out of buying and selling cars. That includes, before you buy a car, you probably want to get an inspection for the car. Once you get the inspection for the car, and then you buy the car, you may want to extend warranty on that car. As part of the process, you may want to finance the car. For us, it's solving all of those pain points that's really important in Horizon 1. We've done a lot of those. We continue on that journey and do more. Horizon 2 is about going international. We are more international company than we were a few years ago. South Korea is a very big part of our organization now. We own 100% of that business. Our LATAM businesses throughout that region are growing very, very fast, and they're in high growth, large economies. And then there's the Horizon 3, which is what happens when new trends take hold. What happens when more electric cars come onto the road? What happens when autonomous comes onto the road? And Horizon 3 is not something that's going to happen next year or the year after or the year after that, but it will happen. And we, as the management team at car sales, want to make sure that we build a robust business for the next 20, 30, even 100 years. And that's sort of what we can continue to expect.
Yes, and Ajay, obviously areas like competitive product research and consumer research provide important data and inputs to shape the new product development. Car sales have been widely regarded for being customer-centric and innovation-focused. Can you take us through why this is so important and how you use the data to validate or disprove potential products and services?
Yeah, so data is the lifeblood of digital businesses, and I would say that in 5 years' time, and even today, it would be very, very difficult to find a successful business that's not using data as their key asset. It's arguable to say car sales is a data organization. LinkedIn is a data organization. Facebook is a data organization. For us, data is really important because if you think about in the global space, who are the competitors to the realestate.coms, car sales, Seeks of the world, etc. We're all global businesses. Our competitors are global. Our competitors are unlikely to be local. They're more likely to be global. That means we need to think about our technology and our data from a global standard perspective. If you then go, how do we make our website better than any new starter in the market? We have 20 years of data. Any new starter can come into the market and launch a new product. What they can't do is understand customers as well as we understand customers, because we have the data on those customers, we have the data on the cars.
Yeah. Thank you. And now, as the Managing Director, Consumer Business, and formerly the Chief Product and Chief Information Officer, product development and importantly new business models is a significant area of focus for you. You once said that you and car sales had a philosophy of making the whole end-to-end experience of car ownership seamless for the consumer. Can you tell us about this and some of the boards you sit on and that are enabling this to take shape?
Yeah, so it's in that horizon one for us, making buying and selling frictionless. And today, in fact, I bought a car from New South Wales. I live in Melbourne, and I actually didn't see the car. I sent an inspector to inspect the car. The inspector came in and did a 140-point inspection on the car. Probably did a better job than I would have done if I saw the car myself. I got a full report. I knew what was right and wrong with the car. I knew exactly what I was getting into. That's one of the services that we offer today that we didn't offer back when I probably spoke to Andrew about this. Further, I financed the car. We have a company called Stratton Finance, which compares and matches you with the best financiers in the market. So I use them to finance the car. If I wanted to, in this case it wasn't applicable, but if I wanted to, I could have extended warranty on the car too, through our own warranty service. They're all the pain points that consumers face when buying and selling cars, and we're focusing on solving those through some of the organic and inorganic developments at car sales.
Thank you. And if we dive a little deeper, you've previously shared that the culture of an organisation has been important for you and the respective businesses, and you've drawn comparisons between your time with organisations you work for. As a senior leader, what advice would you give to others listening today on how they can engage other senior leaders and boards to buy in and support or endorse the process of continual innovation and product delivery to remain relevant and competitive?
Yeah, and this is a very interesting topic, and for me, innovation is where it starts, and the whole organisation, including the board, understanding what does innovation actually mean to you. Because using the word innovation in an organisation, it's an interesting concept and it gets a lot of attention, but unless innovation becomes a culture in the organisation, you haven't really succeeded. Yeah. So some organisations go for, let's create an innovation department. And to me, that's one of the worst things you could do. And in some cases, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not your eventual goal. The reason I'm so against innovation departments is they're sort of showing that the rest of the organization has a problem and you're trying to fix it with a department, which innovation is about cultural change. So for me, the definition at an organization like car sales is new thinking that creates value. It's a very humble definition. This is not a definition to launch a rocket to the moon. Yeah. And there is a reason for this. If the definition was launch a rocket to the moon, how many people at car sales would be inspired by that and would actually feel they're innovating? It might, if anything, cause more issues in the organization thinking that, oh, we're not innovative. So having that humble definition, for example, we run a few hackathons throughout the year at car sales, and one of the early hackathons that we ran, one of the teams came up with a project to build IKEA tables to help with collaboration and co-working spaces, and they did that during a hackathon. And I was really proud of that. It wasn't a technology project, but it was something that everyone was taking ownership of, and they innovated around their working space. It's those small wins. 50% of our hackathon projects go into production. Our organization, when we started hackathons, used to have 100% of technology people participate in the hackathons, but not one outside of technology. Today, that figure is closer to 50-50. 50 in technology, 50 outside of technology. That points to good cultural change within the business. That points to everyone feels they can innovate. And they feel that because our definition of innovation is very humble. Yeah. And that's what's allowed us to drive that cultural change. But I do believe in small things lead to big things. Yeah. And once you get the confidence that you can develop software and put it into production, no matter where you are in the organization, it gives you confidence to give bigger suggestions. Yeah. Yes. So we've had some moonshots. And one of the moonshots that I've spoken about is, well, I call it moonshot anyway. Maybe it's not quite launching a rocket to the moon. But one of the big problems we were trying to solve in our organization was identification of cars. And one of the developers in the hackathon put up a project where you can snap a car and through the photo be able to tell what that car is. That has many, many implications on our business. that means we can identify cars quickly and accurately. Identification of cars sits at the core of our business. It helps people sell cars better. It helps people buy cars better. And that innovation came out of one of our hackathons, and we're using it for several purposes now in the business.
That's most impressive. In your role, you would see many organisations prioritising digital transformation as a key driver of business success. What challenges do you see most often that organisations are grappling with?
I think that the challenges are a lot of the organisations, especially if the organisations tend to be traditional organisations, they tend to not understand what digital disruption means. Bringing someone in and saying, let's create a department to solve it, is a real issue, as we just spoke. The real definition, according to me, of digital disruption is understanding your customer better, delivering value for your customer, being able to adapt to customer needs quickly. But that can't happen if you only do that in one part of your organization. That can only happen if you do it throughout the organization. So I feel the issue with this is often companies, traditional companies, are struggling with revenue streams. Revenue streams are challenged, their market commitments are challenged. When you do cultural change, and you're trying to drive a business that needs a lot of investment, how do you balance the investment needs versus this revenue stream that's very challenged? I think it comes down to one key virtue of leadership, and it comes down to courage. And leadership that has courage to implement this sort of cultural change will come out of it really, really well. And leadership that lacks courage is not able to manage market expectations or the investment that's needed to transform a traditional business into a digital business will lose.
Thanks, Ajay. We'll now go to a short break, and when we return, we'll look to take a few questions that have been submitted through Twitter, Facebook and YouTube using the hashtag ACS Live. If you haven't yet submitted your question, take advantage of the break to do so.
Our next generation superheroes will be those embracing technology by being brave and being bold. They'll be solving cybercrime, homelessness and Alzheimer's, assuring our national security, our energy supply and saving lives. Superheroes will be the thinkers, the dreamers, the visionaries and the revolutionaries. Our vision is for Australia to be a world leader in technology talent, one where every child can change the world.
Thank you for submitting your questions. We'll ask Ajay a couple that we've taken from our audience. From YouTube, question from Realising Potential. What do you see differentiates car sales from any other automotive business that offers varying products and services and has an extensive digital capability?
I feel what makes us unique is, well, there's a few things, but at the core of it, what makes us unique is we started the business, and I'll talk more about Horizon 1 here in this statement. When we started this business, and when Greg Roebuck, who's the founder of this business, started this business, he started this business to sell cars. A lot of the automotive businesses that started around us, especially with the media companies starting those businesses, they started the business to advertise cars. And that is a subtle, but a really, really powerful difference. This is many, many years ago. I used another website and I sent an inquiry to a dealer through this website, and I wanted to see what the experience was like. It took me probably 4 or 5 days before I realized this dealer wasn't going to answer my question on this particular car that I wanted to buy. I sent the same dealer an inquiry through car sales. The answer came back in 1 hour. And there are lots of differences on how we handle our backend. For example, we don't send leads to dealers via email. We send leads to dealers inside a system that manages the lead through to the sale of the car. And that is a subtle difference, but a very powerful difference that helps us sell cars rather than advertise cars. And that's a key difference.
Thank you, Ajay. A question from Facebook. Jeff Brown asked, when will we see the emerging technologies such as virtual reality used to inspect vehicles online?
It's a hard one. It's a hard one. We have an inspection business, and the inspection business is called Red Book Inspect. We do a really good job in inspecting vehicles with that business. We do a 140-point check with the traditional petrol vehicles that are less platforms and more traditional cars. I still feel you need that in-person inspection to get that peace of mind. As the future changes and as more and more electric vehicles come in and there's better connectivity from that vehicle back to a head office system, those inspections could absolutely be done remotely, including inspecting damage on the car and using AI to assess what that damage is worth.
Thank you. From your experience, are there any countries you believe are faring well in their digital transformation journeys, and what are they doing well in relation to policy setting and creating an environment for private organisations, government and education and research institutions to be successful?
There's a few examples that come into mind, and every country is doing something different well. For us, it's a matter of picking what's relevant to Australia here, and one that I really like is Israel, and the reason I really like Israel is it's a small country, and we're a small country. We're probably a little bit bigger than Israel, and that's probably not a good thing. And the reason for that is Israel is so small that they don't have a domestic market. They build everything for the global, with global in mind from day one. We still tend to build a lot of things as local first, and then we globalize it when we go, oh, we should really think of the US and we should really think of the UK. But in Israel, they've done it day one. So I think bringing that thinking back here would be really valuable for us. We have number of Israeli migrants into Australia, and I think they are starting lots of interesting businesses here, and I think it's starting to happen. We just need to continue that trend. Another one around Silicon Valley that I've picked up that's really interesting is the collaboration in Silicon Valley and the openness with which they share ideas. So I did a trip to the Valley earlier this year, and one of the things that really stuck by me was so I go to this VC organization and I go, okay, so who is doing such and such in this space? And they tell me all of it, but they go, you should really go and meet this next VC, and that's their competitor, but they offer that, and they call the VC and actually put me in touch, and I go and meet their competitor, and this sort of stuff doesn't happen in Australia. The amount of open collaboration. And I asked some of these guys, I said, well, why do you do this? Because you're just sending me to a competitor. And he goes, well, there's nothing in an idea, it's all in execution, and we believe that here in the Silicon Valley. So that is a really wise statement, and if we can believe more of that here, we will become a more open society around collaboration. Everyone will benefit. The third one is Sweden. Sweden's really interesting as well, and Sweden's done a lot of work around bridging the digital divide across the country, and that's probably one OECD country that is most advanced when it comes to reducing the digital divide, and many of the things the government has done there around low-cost internet and providing it to majority of the population has seen enormous benefits for that country. And internet's still pretty expensive here, and we should be looking into that.
Thank you. And the cost and entry or access to market to disrupt established organisations is much lower, and it's easier to access markets and consumers. What opportunities do you see for organisation, start-up or established businesses to be or remain competitive?
If you're an incumbent, if you're an established organisation, one of the key competitive advantages you have is data, and data on your customers. The new disruptor can come in and they have a low-cost entry into the market. What they don't have is the data that you have on your customers. So for you to be able to use that data smartly and to be able to capture that data is pretty important for the incumbent. On the other side, on the disruptor side, what I feel is really important is focusing on the customer. Your advantage is you don't have an existing revenue stream. And that tends to be an advantage. There's nothing to lose, and you can hit the incumbent really hard by focusing on the customer better than the incumbent. So keep things really simple, focus on the customer.
Yes, thank you. And you've mentioned in the past that having good people on the board is one of the most important parts of your business. How do you ensure that your staff feel empowered to make changes and they see themselves as innovators within all levels of the organisation?
This comes back to that humble definition of innovation. So rather than having this moonshot definition of we're all innovative if we invent a rocket to the moon, that humble definition allows everyone to pass that innovation test. But then also giving them opportunity, like our hackathons have this track record of 50% projects going to production. That gives a whole lot of people the confidence that they've done something and made a decision that has gone live, and it's their bit of car sales, their ownership of that bit of car sales. And I think that creating that ownership among the staff is really important, and understanding that innovation is a culture, not a department.
Yeah.
Small difference, but a big difference.
You know, the future of work is another hot topic.
Yeah.
The concept of a gig economy comes to mind. Where do you see traditional permanent roles versus contracts and gigs in our future? How do you see those roles interacting within a well-established company like car sales?
From a car sales perspective, you know, we sort of look at the gig economy and go, if we were to launch a small hack or a small experiment, maybe we would consider something like that. But in reality, 99% of what we do is build IP. So you know, if you speak to Coca-Cola, their secret sauce is, you know, whatever the ingredients going into Coke. Our secret sauce is our IP, and who builds that secret sauce? It's our full-time employees. So from our perspective, our secret sauce is our employees. It's our people. That is our competitive advantage. So for car sales, I don't see that economy benefiting us, at least in the short term.
That's interesting you mentioned our employees. When we look at skill sets for the future, what steps can tech workers take to stay relevant? What do you and your senior leaders at car sales look for when you're recruiting team members to work at the organisation in terms of technical knowledge and soft skills?
Look, in terms of technical knowledge, it's pretty simple. We do a technical test, but that's a ticket to the ball game. That gets you a ticket to play. That means you know what you're doing. We find people who are most successful at car sales are the people who are able to then engage everyone else around them. People who can be mini innovators. They can be mini entrepreneurs. They can give us enriching ideas. So a good example of that is it comes back to diversity in one way, and diversity not just in gender but in thinking. So I was recruiting for a CIO role or CTO role, and it was for a role that would eventually replace me in my previous CIO role. And so the recruiter came and asked me, said, "Ajay, so what sort of person do you need? Should I go to seek.com and realestate.com and find you the person, because this is the digital industry, so surely you're looking at those guys." And I said to him, "No, I'm not actually looking at those guys. It could come from them, but I'm not." And he was a bit surprised. He goes, "Why not?" "Because it's digital." Well, I said, "Look, if I go to realestate.com and Seek, they're very similar businesses. I don't think this person's going to necessarily bring anything new to the organization. I'm looking for someone to bring diversity to the organization of how do we get to the next step, not something that everyone else is doing today." And that person could come from NASA, but that person could equally come from an energy company. And yes, a lot of people might think energy companies that must be slow, but we shouldn't be looking at the organization this person comes from. We should be looking at the potential of this person. We talk about lots of biases in Australia, gender being a key bias, which is an absolute problem. But one of the biases no one talks about is industry bias. We tend to employ people who've done it before. The problem with that is, if you've done it before, you don't change anything. So opening up our minds on employing people for potential versus employing people for this is how it used to be is really important. The fourth industrial revolution. Things are changing at a faster rate than ever. History is no longer the best predictor of future. Yet we hire people based on history, not on potential.
Thank you, Ajay. We'll go to a short break, and when we return, we'll look to take a few more audience questions. Remember to submit your questions through Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube using the hashtag ACS Live.
Our next generation superheroes will be those embracing technology by being brave and being bold. They'll be solving cybercrime, homelessness, and Alzheimer's, assuring our national security, our energy supply, and saving lives. Superheroes will be the thinkers, the dreamers, the visionaries, and the revolutionaries. Our vision is for Australia to be a world leader in technology talent, one where every child can change the world.
Thank you for submitting your questions. We'll ask Ajay a few that have come through. From YouTube, Thomas Patsoulis asks, how do you retain the staff that were managing your newspapers to adapt to the digital transformation?
So firstly, there was a reason I moved on from Fairfax into an organisation like Car Sales, and one of the reasons was I was not in a position to make significant change happen at Fairfax. So this was firstly not my decision. So it's really hard for me to answer that in a genuine sense, but from a car sales perspective, there are times when skills are not as relevant for some people. So classic examples, we used to be on an Oracle system, and we wanted to move off that Oracle system and move to a different technology, and there were some people in there who were working on the Oracle system who traditionally would have been made redundant, and so we offered these people redundancy, but we also offered them retraining. And because again, this is about, we just talked about it, it's about potential. It's not about technology. Someone who can work on Oracle can surely work on SQL Server or some other product that you talk about. So I think as far as we stay true to hire to potential and train for skill, these things work themselves out.
Thank you. And a number of our questions from our audience from YouTube have asked questions about the implications about AI cars and the impact they will have on the automotive industry. What do you see as being the impact on retailers?
Look, from an AI perspective, for the first time ever, AI has been around for ages and ages, decades and decades. It's not a new thing, and we all talk about it a lot more because computing power is more accessible, and we're able to crunch data a lot quicker. So that has made AI much more exciting. And in the past, a lot of things have happened around structured data, and we've got pretty good at analysing structured data, making decisions on structured data, making our products more relevant to customers when we have structured data. More recently, the change that has happened is now we can start to understand unstructured data, such as a person's expression. Are they happy? Are they sad? Such as when you're driving a car and you're about to have an accident, automatic braking. So all of that sort of AI, advent of AI and understanding structured data means that we can automate a significant number of tasks that we did not automate in the past. When it comes to self-driving systems and so on, autonomous driving is here today, but fully autonomous, in my view, is still far off. It's far off, not less because of technology and more because of regulation, but it will take quite a while before we get to that stage. Meanwhile, electric will happen quicker. If the Australian government comes up with regulation for some reason in a couple of years' time, it will happen even quicker, and that will have an impact on all businesses. But if you go back to Fairfax as an example, Fairfax, I think when I left Fairfax, and I could be wrong here, but ballpark, it was worth $5 billion as a market cap. And I got the feeling when I was at Fairfax that everyone was scared of moving from newspapers to online, because partly a lot of the executives thought newspapers we can charge $20,000 a week and there's not much accountability there. And with this online thing, we can probably only charge $200 a week. And that was a general sort of feeling, undocumented. But in reality is, Seek, real estate and car sales combined today are worth $20 billion. And Fairfax was defending 5, thinking if we go online, that might become 1 or 2. Those 3 companies combined are worth 20. And it's the same thing with electric cars. So if you embrace the trends, the opportunities are bigger. You've just got to make sure you employ the best people in the organization. That is the key.
Yep.
That's the secret sauce.
Thank you. And I've heard you talk in the past about permission to fail. Can you please enlighten our audience on how you define permission to fail? Can you share some of your, share some of your greatest failures, how you learned and grown from those experiences?
Yeah. So permission to fail is, if all you're going to do is put permission to fail on the wall as posters, that's going to do nothing. Permission to fail is giving the ability to the wider organization to be able to experiment, to be able to say that if we got it wrong, it's okay, because we're only experimenting. They say that A/B testing is probably one of the cheapest ways to do consumer research. Not that you should do that all the time as the only way to do consumer research, but A/B testing is all about experimentation. And for me, permission to fail comes in as part of the culture of the organization, and a culture that must first be demonstrated by the leaders of the organization, that we accept that. There is a theory that I believe in, and there's this concept of vulnerable leader. So we talk about servant leader, we talk about lots of styles of leader. One of the styles of a leader is a vulnerable leader. And where I really believe in vulnerable leader is, I feel a vulnerable leader is perhaps one of the most courageous leaders that can exist. And the reason for that is you're able to accept what you did wrong. You're able to talk about it with the rest of the organization, where you then give the confidence to the rest of the organization saying, it's okay, I failed too, and I recovered from it. You can fail and you can recover from it too. Because failure is a reality of life. If you don't fail enough, you haven't tried enough. One of my failures was I inherited, one of the guys started a real estate business within car sales. And that business, when that person left the organization, as part of my CIO role, I inherited that business and I started running that business. My first attempt at running that business was filled with excitement, because I was starting to run a business in addition to my technology role. And at that stage, I tried really hard. Something inside me told me, a real estate business inside car sales? Is this back to Fairfax? Is this where we are going to lose focus again, just like Fairfax lost focus on too many things? But I still let it happen. We eventually sold the business. It was my decision. I should have taken that decision earlier. And that's something I learned a lot from.
Yeah, thank you. And thinking that the digitization of data is transforming the way we solve problems and looks to address some number of future needs. Urban congestion comes to mind, and sitting in traffic on the way to work when I think about vehicles, but so does automation and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so I think from an AI perspective, there was a revolution around automation and back office processes and so on, and there was a time when it was the in thing, and every organization automated back office processes. I think the in thing is now going to be automation of unstructured data. So being able to, for example, a really good example is now that we can detect cars through their image. One of the things we're able to do is detect the car through its image and tell you that it's a Holden Commodore VL version. So we're able to tell you that, and and then we can also look up the NEVDIS database, which is a government database, through the Rego to go, what is this car described as? Now, if NEVDIS describes that car as a Holden Commodore VK, and we describe that car as a Holden Commodore VL, there is a discrepancy, and there is a good chance that that car has a stolen number plate. We can now help organizations who want to understand, does this car have a stolen number plate? And we can do this live. We can help governments. And this is something we couldn't do in the past. So this is automation of fraud detection, for example. The opportunities around automation of structured data are enormous. I don't think anyone realizes how big the opportunity is. Example is insurance companies currently assess damage through careful inspections. What if when you drive your car inside the insurance booth, we take photos of the car, we've seen that sort of damage before on that sort of car, and AI tells us approximately what that damage is worth. We can do that today. And companies have enormous opportunities to automate.
Thank you. And who are some of the individuals that you look to for inspiration or even advice and insights? What could people watching this learn from these people?
For me, it's not one individual. There's a number of individuals, and it's different things that I learn from all of these individuals. There's inspiration all around me. I'm very, very lucky, and that inspiration is around me at car sales within our executive team, our group CEO, our chief people officer, our CIO, our commercial director. All of them, they are very inspirational people. They bring different strengths to the table, and there's so much that I'm learning on a daily basis. But quite apart from that, from an external perspective, people like Jeff Bezos, from a customer focus perspective, Amazon is such a customer focused organization. They use data really, really well, and I get very inspired by the thinking around putting customer at the center and actually living that value. And it's real customer obsession. So to me, Jeff Bezos is one. But equally, one thing that's really important is I have a number of people within Australia that I feel very inspired by, and people like Mike Cannon-Brooks, who's built Atlassian and at a local scale. I think the real rock stars are those entrepreneurs like Greg Roebuck, who founded Car Sales, who've created thousands and thousands of jobs. I did an experiment once, and I think it was at the 2017 or 16 Reimagination Summit where I spoke, and I put up a number of photos, and the first set was photos of international sports stars and local sports stars. I asked the audience, who knows this person? It was Kathy Freeman. Everyone knew Kathy Freeman. The second was Ricky Ponting. Everyone knew Ricky Ponting. Then I put up photos of international entrepreneurs, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and so on, and half the audience knew who they were. Then I put up photos of people like Mike Cannon-Brooks and Greg Roebuck, people who've locally created thousands of jobs. In fact, the four people I put up collectively had created 10,000 jobs in the country. And I think probably 1% of the audience raised their hands. So we know the international entrepreneurs, we know all the sports stars, we don't know these people who've created 10,000 jobs in our country.
That's interesting, isn't it? And finally, just quickly, can you give us a prediction on what you believe the greatest technological advances and impact will be made over the next 3 to 5 years?
I don't think I'm the best at predicting futures, but from what I can see and what I can predict based on the use of AI will increase astronomically, the use of unstructured data, automation around AI, which provides significant benefits to businesses and a competitive advantage. That will increase enormously over the next 5 years. Internet of Things, how we consume data will change. For example, voice will become much more mainstream than it is today. So today I remember 10 years ago we used to optimize for desktop. Now 70% of car sales traffic comes from mobile. And I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years' time if 50% of the traffic came from voice.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ajay, for your time and for sharing your valuable insights with ACS members and viewers. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. However, in the coming days, visit the ACS website to view the full version of this interview. To all our viewers, good night, and please join us for our next ACS Industry Insights.